This is Sal, and you are listening to the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast on the BS Podcast Network.
In a world of ordinary fantasy football podcasts, ordinary guys rise up to bring you extraordinary analysis and entertainment. This is the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, and Stephen Marcus.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today is Thursday, June 15th, and this is the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast. Sal, was that better for you?
I never want to praise you in any way, shape, or form. I'm nodding my head. Maybe you can hear something jiggling around, but I won't say yes.
It was better than the German. You have to admit that.
Yeah, no, anything is better than your German.
Fair enough. I have with me, as usual, Sal, obviously. Sal Lito, what's going on? Steve Marcus, we brought back yet again. I keep wondering why we do that, but it keeps happening. So
He edits the show.
I was gonna say, you don't sound very pleased about that. And touching on your German, you don't know the amount of hate mail we received for how much you butchered that opening last week. So happy to start it off with a little bit of English this week.
I still say that they appreciated it, and not only that, but they appreciate me giving the date too, because they're very precise people. I'm sure they enjoy that. So Sal, you can you can deal with it.
I couldn't even read most of the hate mail that they sent, so I'm not sure if they hate you or not at this point.
That's fair. The good thing about you two not liking me is that I brought someone to the show tonight that might actually appreciate what I do. I could be way off on this, but we brought Matt Price in from Dynasty League Football to come and praise me, right? Isn't that why you're here, Matt?
Actually, I think I'm here to, give Steve a little bit of a boost because you guys are so mean to him every week.
Yes.
I think he needs a friend. I really think he needs a friend.
This podcast is starting off very well.
Steve has plenty of friends. They hang out outside of his place of business every day.
Yeah, they're the perfect type of friends that always ask me for money, and they're your typical best friend. So,
dude, can I charge my phone?
So Matt, you can find Matt at Matt Pricer on Twitter. But Matt, where else can people get you? What are you up to? What are you doing? And why are you here?
Yeah, the Twitter's actually at mpricer, not Matt. I couldn't get that one, and so anyway, just mpricer. But you can find. Go ahead.
I thought you were buying it. No, you didn't buy that.
Yeah, with all those fat DLF checks coming in, I'm buying my own Twitter handle and probably a couple thousand followers as well. So, but no, yeah, you can find me there on Twitter. You'll probably mostly see non-football stuff. I tweet about football sometimes, but animal stuff, people seem to like that. So, got the hashtag brand going with the Zookeeper thing. But no, I also the co-host of the DLF Dynasty podcast along with Jeff Miller, Chad Scott, and Dan Myler. So check it out there. I do some writing as well, not as much as I've gotten into the podcast team. It's just way more fun to show up and talk about football these days than sit down and write, like a couple thousand words. But I do have a few articles up recently for rookie profiles and draft reviews and that kind of thing. So you can check all that out at dynastyleaguefootball.com.
Awesome. So welcome. And I was on your podcast, what was it, last week now? A week ago, I guess. So, and that was a lot of fun. I had a great time there. Clearly, I made the wrong choice in asking you instead of Dan on this podcast because obviously you're supporting Steve, and that's not what I was going for. So I'll have to make a better choice next time. But for now, we got a pretty packed show. We did a segment on our last show that, I don't like to pat my own back or anything, but it was a pretty big hit. People seem to like it. Can
you reach your own back?
That's not funny. That's not funny at all. Listen, I like to think it was a good bit. It was Voxer. Obviously, we talked about Voxer. Voxer is an app, social media app, and hopefully someday they'll sponsor us because we're going to keep pulling it out here. But basically,
wait. You're going to keep pulling it out. What the hell kind of podcast did this turn into?
The app, Sal. The app.
Oh,
What's your problem?
I don't know.
What are you pulling the app out of?
Listen, what I do at my own home is my own business.
Just bear with me. I missed dinner and I'm sitting here eating Vienna fingers. That's all I've gotten. So I might be a little loopy.
All I have to ask is you turn the video off before you do any of this.
Right. So anyway, moving along. Basically, the idea here is it's an app that allows you to voice record messages. Sal has done this for us several times, and most of the time we can barely understand what he's saying. And we kept telling him this, and then finally realized that with the transcribe function of the app, we can actually show him how hard it is to understand what he's saying. So our new game is to read some news bits and ask if you can figure out what Sal is saying. So this is kind of a game we call Sal Says What, and Steve was really bad at it last time. So we're going to get...
I feel like I got a lot of those right. How can you say that?
We're going to give Matt a chance to do better than Steve, which usually isn't very difficult. So are you ready, Matt?
I'm ready.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
What the man's about to touch the chip? What the man's about to touch the chip, boy?
I'm sorry, I do not understand your accent. Why don't you please just speak English? Maybe I can understand you. I am speaking English. Why don't you speak English?
All right, here's the first one. Be ready to Jimmy Kempski still expects more wood to make the final 53. What he could open the season has a game they scratch. The Eagles are working part 3 on special team units, while the Garrett Blunt and Darren Sproles of the 2 walks to dress each week, Smallwood's dynasty value is near the gutter. So I think it's a little clear, kind of what team he's talking about, but what is Sal trying to say there?
I absolutely have no idea. I feel like last time listening along, like I was pretty good at this, but I keep focusing on the Jimmy McKimski. Is that what it was? Jimmy McKimski? Like I was like, maybe he's talking about the Macklin signing, but then you started talking about the running backs and who's going to be a day one scratch.
You got to be ready to Jimmy
something
Kempski.
About Dorial Green Beckham, maybe? Is he a day one scratch for you?
Well, would you like to hear? Let's hear.
Wait.
Let's
You're
hear.
not even going to let me give a guess and trying to redeem myself?
I think Steve should.
Or you want to do better, Steve? Go ahead.
I would like to throw out there that possibly it is about Wendell Smallwood and his dynasty value, and how the running back situation, LeGarrette Blount and Darren Sproles are the only locks to dress every week, and how Wendell Smallwood might be in a little bit of trouble.
So you took the last sentence, which is actually clear, which says Smallwood's dynasty value is near the gutter.
Yep.
And you went with that.
Yep. That's why I didn't point that one out. All right, maybe you guys are right. Maybe Steve is the worst.
Yeah, see? But let's hear what Sal has to say here.
Beat writer Jimmy Kempski still expects Smallwood to make the final 52, but he could open a season as a game day scratch. The Eagles are working pump free on special teams units, while LeGarrette Blount and Darren Sproles of 2 box to dress each week. Smallwood's dynasty value is near the gut.
All right. So I didn't see pump free anything anywhere in the transcription. So I'm not surprised that no one got that.
I don't know. I feel like I pretty much nailed that one.
You did. I got tripped up by the beat writer name, apparently, is what that was. So
what I usually do when I pick these out is I try to find ones that have names in them that you wouldn't recognize. And then I do try to really emphasize the accent on certain things.
Emphasize.
Yeah. So it Jimmy Kempski was all part of my devious plan. Thank you, James.
That makes sense. It worked.
All right. Look, we have one more before we move on from this. I don't think it's going well for either West Coast person here, but all right, let's go with one more. Dunley time I ever talk about my contract, will think about it is when you guys ask me questions about it, obviously. Stafford told reporters, I just go out there and play ball, try to be aggressive, and get that. ESPN's Jeremy Sell has reported Stafford placed to wait for Derek, all set the market before agreeing to anything with the lines, knees. It's paid the picture of a guy who's not that big of a hurry that what Stafford does finally sign, he will become one of the highest paid players in football. All right, so
I mean, it's got to be Stafford talking about his contract extension, right?
Yes, I think that's right. Steve, any other insight?
No, that is correct. That sounds you threw him the softball there. He got the old
that
softball.
one was a softball. That one was a little too easy.
Does anybody know who Stafford will be passing to this year? Who his lead receiver will be? He appeared on last week's.
Was that in that transcription?
No, that was last week's episode.
Last week, he was thrown to Pete, also known as Golden Tate.
All right, let's hear what Sal had to say there.
The only time I ever talk contract or think about it is when you guys ask me questions about it. Honestly, Stafford told reporters, I just go out there and play ball, try to be aggressive and get better. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler has reported Stafford plans to wait for Derek Carr to set the market before agreeing to anything with the Lions. And these comments paint the picture of a guy who's not in that big of a hurry. When Stafford does finally sign, he will become one of the highest paid players in football.
All right, so you guys both get that one. I'm going to give it to Matt because he is the guest and because Steve is stupid.
Interesting.
I want to, Kevin, I want to let the world know that I can say Stafford. You hear that? Stafford. But I like to say Stafford because, that's how that sounds much better. Stafford.
Last week you said Long Islanders. So.
Yeah, Long Island. Hey, and by the way, I made an appearance on the Run to Daylight podcast, and Todd from PA, the host Todd, he asked me about my life on Long Island, and he pronounced it that way. I thought for sure he heard it on the podcast, but no. He knows that that's how people from Long Island talk.
All right.
Well,
I actually know that too, Sal. I actually work with a lady from Long Island, so I hear all about it too. It's honestly, it's harder to understand her than it is you. So you got that going for you.
How big is her hair currently?
It's decent size. I'm not gonna lie, it's decent size.
It's a guarantee. That hair. I could say on his podcast, you could stop a wave on Jones Beach with women on Long Island's hair.
So let's talk about this really quickly, though, because obviously it's Stafford talking about his contract, and he's waiting for Derek Carr to set the market, who I think we all expect to get a pretty significant deal. Do we think Stafford is going to get as much as Derek Carr?
Yeah, it sounds to me like he thinks he's going to. I mean, Stafford is, what is he, about 28, 29 years old? He's still really in the prime of his career, and he's a guy as you guys know, every year I'm higher on him than most. And Kevin's up on him this year as well. I think he's up on him. I think if they put a few more weapons around him, which they're trying to do, you got Galladay out there now. I think that he's not worth as much as Derek Carr, but I think he's going to get paid. It's what quarterbacks get. Look at what Kirk Cousins is getting.
I think he's absolutely going to get paid. He's going to get paid as much as he wants, because what else are the Lions going to do? I mean, you don't let your franchise quarterback walk out the door. Stafford is actually an interesting case because he's made so much money already in his career. I think he was the second to last number one quarterback overall drafted before the rookie salary slot started. So him and Bradford have just made an incredible amount of money based on that.
Yeah, I think his original contract was $60 million to start off with, which is so insane. When you look back at it, you're like, how did they not think to change that sooner? Or how could they not have changed that sooner? It's so amazing.
Unions.
I get that, Sal, but geez.
there was a while there where you couldn't trade the number one pick because it was just going to cost you too much to sign whatever player it was. So, yeah, it was an interesting time.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Stafford's going to get what he gets because you don't give up on a franchise quarterback. What concerns me with Stafford is he seems to take quite the beating, although their offensive line hopefully should be better this year. Even with Decker out, they should still be a little bit better. So hopefully, he won't get beat up as much. But he's a guy that looks like he's taken a lot of punishment, and the injuries later on in the career for him are going to worry me as he gets a little further down the line. So just something to keep in mind. But obviously, contracts are important to keep in mind when you're talking about fantasy value going forward. You want to make sure that you have guys, particularly from a dynasty perspective, that are going to get extended. So anyway, all right. So we're going to get into some more dynasty talk and more overall drafting talk, because it is that time of year where you got to start preparing for your drafts. Whether you're in MFL 10s and you're starting to do some some drafts right now for those, or you're in dynasty startups, or you're just getting ready for your normal redraft leagues. One of the things that I know Matt is a big proponent of, and has talked about on his podcast quite a few times, is building tiers when you're talking about doing your rankings and putting together your cheat sheets and getting ready for your drafts. So, Matt, why don't you take us through a little bit about what you think constitute as the tiers and how you go about kind of building them when you're getting ready for draft prep, or even if you're just doing your rankings in general.
Yeah, so I think you really got to start with good projections. I used to do my own, but there are people out there that are way better than I am, so I just use theirs now. One of my favorites, especially for redraft, is John Paulson over at 4for4. But those are always for redraft leagues, right? So it's a lot harder with dynasty because you have more nuances involved, whether we're talking about age or a contract situation like we just talked about, the players around them and their contracts. So it's a little bit different than just taking a redraft ranking and throwing that in for your dynasty for your dynasty tiers. So you've got to use that kind of stuff, and then after you have that, you got to build your rankings from those projections. And again, that's different with dynasty because you got to take all those things into account. And then after you have your rankings is when I take them and put them into positional tiers. And honestly, I'm not going to lie to you guys. The tier breakdown, it's a combination of a lot of things, both past production, what I think they're going to do in the future, age, and all that stuff. So my rankings and my tiers aren't always necessarily the same, if that makes any sense to you at all. Just because the way you group those players is more important than the ranking themselves. You know what I mean? So once I have that, the real beauty of tier-based drafting is that, especially for auction leagues, but you can check and you can see how many of each position are left. So let's say I have only 2 running backs left in my tier 3, but there's still 5 left in my tier 2. So I'm going to go ahead and take my running back right now because I know that if I don't get one now, I'm probably going to have to drop down a tier, whereas my wide receivers are going to stay current there. So I also have taken in the past of blending them together and creating tiers with all positions involved. But for me personally, for the way I work, it's a little bit cleaner for me to have them all individually, and just the way my mind works, it makes a little bit more sense to me that way. And then another big thing that I like to consider is that your quarterback 1 tier is not equal to your running back 1 tier. So just because you have tier 1 players in each of those positions does not mean that my running back tier, my Ezekiel Elliott and my David Johnson are equal to Aaron Rodgers and Andrew Luck. That's definitely not the case. So that's just kind of a little bit of background, I guess.
So that's a great point, and a question I would have for you, because for me, when I'm doing the tiers, I kind of do a multi-positional tier, right? I group them not necessarily by position. I mean, I think you kind of ultimately have to a little bit, but you're almost doing 2 sets of tiers, right? You're doing a full tier and then like a positional tier. But for me, I kind of like to group the positions together because it helps me determine that, right? Because like you said, there's, quarterback's pretty deep this year. You're talking about 20 guys that I could probably live with being as starters on my team. Whereas in a running back situation, we're talking maybe the top 7 are the guys that I need for an RB1. So, I think a lot of that's why I like to group them together so that you can kind of see that. Do you do them separately, or and then just know that you have a different value set, or?
Yeah, I do it that way because I don't know. It doesn't make a difference. I think it's the same thing as long as you are kind of clear on where you have the players, ranked, when comparing across positions. But for me, I just like to see them all by position, so I know. I don't know. It's just easy. I know it doesn't make any sense right now, but to me, it just feels like a more jumbled kind of list that I'm looking at of a bunch of different players from different positions. Whereas I would just like to be able to look. Okay, I have 5 running backs left here and 2 wide receivers here, and then. So for that, it just works better for me.
So a guy that knows what it's like to not make sense is Sal. Sal, do you have anything else to add to the tier breakdown or how you come up with tiers? Do you do tiers, Sal?
Yeah, so it's funny because obviously we're getting into doing our rankings now, and last year was the first year where I had to put together a list of rankings that we published as, on a website and stuff like that. So it's still all kind of new to me. Obviously, I've always done my rankings for myself throughout the years and all my drafts for, the 20 plus years that I've done it. But I'm a very freelance drafter. Like I have those ideas in my head. I have everything loosely based. So I've never really broken them down into tiers. I'm glad we have Matt on because, I feel like I'm going to school tonight. So I don't really think that I could bring much to the table as far as, what I do and don't do when it comes to tiers. I rank things basically now so that I could poke fun at Steve and Kevin in their ranking. I have something to go off of when we get into challenges. Like when he says there's only 7 RB1s, and he just fails to mention that Marshawn Lynch is a clear-cut RB1 this year.
We'll get to that. Let's just hold off on the Marshawn Lynch talk. Although, Matt, really quickly, where do you have Marshawn Lynch? Do you know?
Yeah, let me. I can pull it up real quick. Jeez.
So while he's doing that, take your time. While he's doing that, Steve is a guy that is genuinely frightened by chaos. So I imagine he goes a little bit more detail with his tiers and his preparation for his drafting than Sal does.
Yeah, well, I think Matt made a great price, or made a great price. Listen to that.
I do make a good price.
He makes a great point when talking about the amount of people you have in each tier based on the position. And I think it's also very important to know the scoring, obviously, to your league when you're breaking down these positions and going through your draft, because you might, like you said, have a few running backs left in a tier and then have a few wide receivers. But if your league is geared towards one position or the other, that can definitely help guide you to what position that you're going to draft. This is the first time that I've ever really put together tiers. I did my rankings like Sal did last year and all of that, but I've never really done this. And I think it's good because it kind of helps you, instead of just doing a ranking in order of who you're going to take based on position scarcity and maybe the scoring of your league, it definitely helps you determine which position you might want to take, knowing that if you have a lot of players left in one tier and not so many left in another tier that you value, you might want to take them first, knowing that you have all of these other guys back to fall back on. So I think it definitely helps in providing a bit of a cheat sheet for you when you're going into your drafts, and it's definitely a great visual, and it helps you lay things out a little bit easier for me.
So I have Marshawn Lynch in my tier 10.
Tier 10.
So I have him at about running back 40-41, right in that range.
Thank you.
And I split up.
We're talking dynasty.
This is completely dynasty. And the other thing I like to do with my tiers, and I don't know if this is weird or not, if it's the only thing that I do, is I like to group players together that I feel similarly about. So, for example, I have a tier with just Derrick Henry, Tevin Coleman, and CJ Prosise. So I have those guys in a tier together because they're guys that have shown flashes, they've shown talent. We think they're going to be pretty good, but they're behind an established starter. So those guys all feel pretty much the same to me. They're all about the same age, 22 to 24. And then that same tier that Marshawn Lynch in, for me, it has a lot of the older veteran starters that kind of have like what I consider kind of a loose hold on the job and could be overtaken. So he's in the same tier with guys like Frank Gore, Jamal Charles, Danny Woodhead, Adrian Peterson, LeGarrette Blount, Matt Forte, Jonathan Stewart, those kind of guys. So he's near the top of that tier. But again, if I'm at a point where I need to take a selection here and I have 7 guys in or whatever it is in this tier here, and then I have only 2 receivers left in the tier above it, then I'm probably going to go ahead and take the receiver there. And if I don't get Lynch, oh well, I'll just take Blount because I feel about the same about him.
So Matt, while Kevin pushes his boner back onto the desk, where do you see Lynch for this season? So when he's obviously higher in my redraft rankings, which is the
absolutely
rankings.
Right. So Sal has him at 12, Steve has him at 18, and I have him at 22. So just to give you a frame of reference.
I think I would probably be in the mid running back 2 range for him. I don't know if I could call him a running back 1 at this point. I like the guys behind him a lot, DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard. I think they did a lot of good stuff last year, and I just think they're going to cap his PPR upside because I think they're better receivers than he is. Don't get me wrong, Lynch is not necessarily a slouch in the receiving game. I just think that those guys are probably a little bit more explosive with, catching the ball out of the backfield. So I would not be surprised. I think he has such a wide range of outcome, right, you guys? I mean, I could easily see him being, a top 10 running back. I don't think he's going to get to top 5, like in the very best case scenario, unless he scores like 20 touchdowns. But I could see him easily finish in that bottom part of the running back 1, or I could see him completely bust out and be like a running back 3, like somebody you kind of don't even want to put in your flex every week. So he's a really hard guy to pin down right now. And I don't play a lot of redraft, but if I had to guess, I would probably have him in that like 15 to 20 range myself. So I'd be right in line there with Steve and Kevin there.
That's what I'm talking about.
Sorry, Sal. I like him. He's one of my favorite players of all time. Do you guys know? Do you guys remember the story? Maybe it was last offseason, but he was like coaching some like a youth football league or something like that, and he just started pulling chicken wings out of his socks and eating them.
Yes,
how do you not love a guy like that?
I'll tell you what, he's real. He's a real individual, and he just wears it on his sleeve or in his socks. But you got to love a guy like that. I'm me, and I'm not apologetic for it.
He was also on that Bear Grylls survival show. If you haven't caught that episode of that show, I don't really like Bear Grylls that much, but his episode, he takes them out. I can't remember. It's like the desert or the mountains or something. And Marshawn he's just hilarious. You have to watch it. Marshawn Lynch fan.
See, now that I would definitely pay to see. You see him out in the wild trying to figure stuff out. I could see being pretty funny. All right, so let's get back to tiers really quickly. So we talked about running back. You have Lynch in your tier 10 for running backs. But I'm curious, where do you cap the tier 1 and the tier 2 for running backs? Because to me, that's an interesting dividing line. I think the top 3 running backs, most people are putting in a tier by themselves, but some people are including a couple others in there. And then that second tier I've seen all over the board. So I'm curious, where do you have the 2 running back tiers broken out?
So I'll talk about this in a 3 because my tier 2 only has one guy in it, and it's Melvin Gordon. Like, he, to me, is in a tier by himself. He's not the top 3 guys. He's not Zeke. He's not Bell. He's not David Johnson. But to me, I'm still more confident in him than I am in the next set of guys, which is Todd Gurley, Devonta Freeman, Jay Ajayi, and Jordan Howard. So I can't put him in that first one, and I think he's a little bit better than that third tier for me. So I have him in a tier of his own in number 2.
Interesting. Steve, any difference there for you? I'm assuming you have the same 3 in your tier 1.
I actually don't. I've only got 2 running backs in my tier 1, and it's David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell. Now, I've got Ezekiel Elliott in my tier 2, but he is like the tippy top of tier 2, and he's in there with LaShawn McCoy, Melvin Gordon, Devonta Freeman, and Jay Ajayi. And the only reason I did not put him in my tier 1 is that I just feel like with this season, Dallas basically, they had a Cinderella season last year. Nobody expected them to do what they did with having Dak Prescott starting the entire season for them. And I just think that heading into the second season, there's going to be a little bit of regression. It is going to come from Dak Prescott. I don't think that he is going to be as consistent without turning the ball over. I think that his interceptions are definitely going to go up a bit. They did lose 2 pieces of their offense of their offensive line, Jesus. And I don't think that he is the best of that tier, but I don't have him. It's not a knock on him as much as saying that I feel much more safe with David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell than I do with a guy like Ezekiel.
So this is where.
No, go ahead.
So this is where we get into those nuances, I think, because I agree with everything you just said, but I think the 4 years that he has on Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson for me, is enough to push him back up into that first tier. If we got 4 years on him, he's probably going to be a running back 1 for the next 4 to 5 years. Like, I just can't see him falling out of that kind of top 12 scorer at the position. So just the age thing is enough to push him back up there for me.
So, Steve, I'm guessing those are your tiers for this season?
Yes, correct. I was just going to say that.
Oh, okay.
When I made these tiers, I definitely had just redraft in mind for this next season. But for Dynasty, I just had a Dynasty startup draft, and he was my first pick at number 2 overall. So obviously, I had him a little bit higher there. So I completely agree with that. If it were Dynasty, he would absolutely be in tier 1.
So let me ask you this, Matt, or all of you actually, because one of the guys that I love this season, and obviously I want to bring in a little bit of a dynasty talk to it, is LaShawn McCoy, because to me he's almost, for redraft, he's almost in that tier 1, because I think he's going to have a monster season. I love him for this year. I think the offense is going to run through him. I love what he did last year. There's no more Gillislee to steal touchdowns. I think he's going to have a monster year, but I also think for dynasty, I don't know that I can put him in the tier 1, but he's just off the edge for me because I still think he has a couple of years left. So I'll start with you, Matt. I didn't hear if he was in your tier 3 there. But where do you have McCoy, and what are your thoughts on him for this year and going forward?
I really like him too, especially for redraft. I do worry about how many touches he had last season. He had these nagging injuries, but it didn't seem to affect them that much. You know, they've been talking up Jonathan Williams too as an important part of their offense, but that doesn't really matter so much to me because of just the volume, the amount they run the ball there in Buffalo. So for redraft purposes, I would agree with you. I'd probably have him in that, you know, that third tier for me, somewhere around there. Maybe the second tier. I'm getting confused with my dynasty tiers here. It's hard for me to go back and forth because I actually haven't played a redraft league except for my brother's office league, which I help him win almost every year. And so, but anyway, sorry about that. So LeSean McCoy, for dynasty purposes, I have him actually in my 1, 2, 3, 4. I have him in my tier 5, and the reason for that is right below that tier 3 with Gurley, Freeman, Ajayi, and Howard is where I bring in the rookie running backs. And I mentioned earlier how I like to group players together, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel like we got a whole lot of delineation between those top 4 running backs in the draft. You know, I still kind of feel about the same about them. So I have McCaffrey, Fournette, Mixon, and Cook in that 4th tier, and then right at the very next running back for me is LeSean McCoy at the top of the 5th tier.
Now, Steve, I know you love McCoy too. I know you're a big McCoy guy.
Yep, that
so
I am.
He's
in my 2nd tier. So
okay.
like I said, I made these for redraft, and LeSean McCoy is my RB4 for redraft this year. So I am all in on him. I don't know if I broke my tiers down a little bit wider, or included a few more running backs. I've got 5 people in my tier 2 with Elliott, McCoy, Gordon, Freeman, and Ajayi. So. Those guys I all kind of lumped together, but I think I kind of took the same mindset as Matt did, is that I lump these guys together as I feel very similar with them, that if I were to miss out on a LeSean McCoy, I feel comfortable taking a Melvin Gordon. If I miss out on Gordon, I feel comfortable taking a Devontae Freeman, and that's what I was saying when I made these tiers, is that you group these guys together to kind of help yourself with the position scarcity and how you feel about all of these guys. So he is right behind Ezekiel Elliott in that tier 2, and I'm very high on LeSean McCoy this year. I'm a big fan of his.
All right, so that's a.
Go ahead, Kev. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so that's a good point that you bring up, Steven. And one of the things that I think, but obviously we're getting into a little bit of a player discussion here, but more of on a strategy aspect. Do you feel like putting too many guys in your tiers is an issue? Because for me, I like to try to keep them a little smaller. I don't know that I go with the 1-player tier like Matt, but I do try to keep them a little bit smaller, because for me, when I start getting too many in there, then I feel like I'm not making those decisions properly, and I'm not really cutting off where I need to. So I try to keep them at I don't know, maybe 5-6 players at most, and then make sure that I have those clear delineations. Matt, are you kind of the same way, or do some of your groups have just? I mean, obviously, as you get lower in the tiers, or higher in the tiers, I should say, you're going to have more players. It's just the nature of the beast. But I try to keep them pretty compact if I can.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I think it depends on position for me though, because like if I go to tight end position, once I get past tight end. Like 9 or 10, I just have a big mess of guys. I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have like 11 guys in my 3rd tier of tight ends, and then like a whole bunch in the 4th tier as well. So and then it's similar at quarterback too a little bit. I have my top like 17, 18 guys, and then a big tier, and then another big tier. So for me, it's different just based on position.
All right, Steve, any thoughts on that before we let Sal say nothing and then move on?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because you look at total points scored for the previous seasons, and you see things like, 10 points separated tight end 7 between tight end 15. And so that they're typically in a season that there aren't those huge drastic differences as between maybe in Aaron Rodgers and Tom, or, I have Tom Brady in my first tier for quarterbacks, but maybe between Aaron Rodgers and the next quarterback where there might be 40 points difference. It makes it just so you're easily able to identify where there's a bigger grouping of players where you're able to take them, where it might not matter if you miss out on the top guy of your tier as opposed to the 4th guy in your tier. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I totally agree with that.
All right, Sal, did you learn anything?
Yeah, I'm going to listen to Matt and not you two guys.
That is a good strategy. All right, so let's move along here and get into to a game that I've created. Actually stolen, I guess, is a better word for it. So when I was on the DLF podcast, Matt made me play a game of Price is Right. which I successfully won. Although I will say, Matt, Sal accused me of cheating. As soon as he heard it, he listened to it and he said that I cheated. I still don't know why, but I guess getting Leonard Fournette exactly on the ADP was him suggesting that I cheated.
I don't know. I think that's a pretty strong memory correlation you made there. You were like, he wore number 7. He was 7th overall, or he was his number is 7, and he was 7th overall in running back ADP. So that seems like something I could remember.
Yeah,
plus I was out there.
Plus, I was way off on Josh Reynolds. So
did you hear?
Way off.
Sal, did you hear his answer for Josh Reynolds?
Yeah, he had him like 38 or something like that. So if I learned one thing as a guy in New York growing up lying a lot, is that you nail one and then you completely fudge one so people think you didn't cheat, and then you nail the next couple. So that's a tactic I'm far too familiar with.
All right. Well, tonight we are going to play a different game, another classic, and one that I have learned recently that is one of Steve's favorite game shows. We are going to play ADP Family Feud tonight. So a little different because we have 3 players as opposed to 2 families. I was going to let Steve and Sal lose to you, Matt, by yourself, because I still think you would have won. But I figure we'll let everyone play individually and give everybody a chance. So the way this is going to work, the June Dynasty ADP came out today recently on dynastyleaguefootball.com. Obviously, as Matt has mentioned, go check that out. But you can see all the different ADPs that I believe Ryan McDowell runs mock drafts to get these ADPs. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's the ADP king of all fantasy football. Basically.
That's right. That's right. So the way this is going to work, we're going to play 2 rounds. Matt's going to go first because he's the guest. Steve will have the ability to steal your points, and then Steve will go and Sal will have the ability to steal his points, and so on and so forth. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a position and an ADP range. So, for example, running backs between 1 and 10, and I'll give the number of the answers that will be on the board. And all you have to do is get 5 of those correctly. We're going to cap it at 5. You only have to get 5. If you get 5, you get 5 points. If you miss 3, if you guess incorrectly 3 times, the next person will have the ability to steal. Pretty simple, right? I think it's pretty basic Family Feud style. So are we everyone clear on the rules?
I think so.
I was reading something. Could you take it from the top?
You're going to have to lose.
Go ahead. I'm ready to go. Okay.
All right, so we're going to start with Matt, like I said. So, Matt, the top 7 answers are on the board for this, and we're going to do running backs with an overall ADP between 25 and 50. So you have to name 5 of the 7 running backs between 25 and 50.
Of overall ADP, not positional ADP.
Correct. Overall ADP, yep.
Okay, between 25 and 57 of them. That's a lot.
Without being a Kevin-type cheater.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna say LaShawn McCoy's got to be in there.
Correct.
How many wrong answers do I get?
Get 3 wrong.
3 wrong answers. All right. I'm gonna go with. Is Jordan Howard in there?
He is not in there, so that's 1 wrong.
All right. Let's say we got to be some rookies. How about Joe Mixon?
Joe Mixon is in there.
Okay. Dalvin Cook, he's got to be in there too. Those rookie ADPs are ridiculous this
season. Yep. Dalvin Cook is in there. That's 3.
Whew. Derrick Henry. I know he's early.
That is correct. 4. Uh-oh.
Man.
This
gets tough as we could get down there.
Yep.
Oh, that's 4 out of 7?
That's 4 out of 7.
Man. I know Gurley has fallen. Has he fallen to 25 yet?
Gurley is not at 25 yet. Nope. All right, that's 2 wrong. So either a wrong one or a right answer here.
All right. How about Crowell? I know he's been moving up too.
And unfortunately, that is incorrect. All right. So Steve, you have the opportunity to steal here. So if you can guess any one of the 3 remaining running backs within 25 to 50 overall, you will get 5 points.
Ooh, the entire 5. Well, I feel like he was on the right track with those rookie running backs, but I am going to go with Tevin Coleman.
Tevin Coleman is not correct. So, Matt, you will keep your 4 points. So the remaining backs within the category are Jay Ajayi, who is at 28. Derrick Henry, no, he said Derrick Henry. DeMarco Murray, who is at 45, and Lamar Miller at 48.
It's a damn shame.
Yeah.
It's a
So
damn
the
shame.
reason
Scott Fish is going to be so upset that we did not mention J.J.
I thought I said, wasn't that the first name I said? Oh no, I said LaShawn McCoy. Never mind.
Sean McCoy, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, and Dalvin Cook. Yeah, those were the ones that you guessed. So I guess the point here on this one, and the reason I bring this particular category up is 7 of running backs in the 25 to 50 range. So to me, you'll just sort of notice through all of these is one of the things that I am trying to point out as we talked about tiers is there's some groupings of players in these certain sections within the ADP that you can kind of monitor and keep an eye on, right? You want to know when there's going to be a run of a particular position. So knowing that 7 out of the 25 players in this category are going to be running backs, you probably want to grab one, right? Or at least think about grabbing one beforehand so you don't have to worry about it. So that's sort of why I bring this up. And do any of these, and while we're talking about that, Matt, do any of these jump out at you as being way off or that you would take in different areas?
Yeah, I am. I don't know if it's cliche at this point, but I'm a win now player. So the thought of taking these rookie running backs this early just it gives me a rash, I think. I cannot fathom taking Mixon like in the early 3rd round. That to me, like I love his talent, I love the player, but in a startup draft, like there's just no way. I'm not doing it. I would rather have Ajayi. I would rather have Baldwin's got to be going that area. Keenan Allen's got to be going somewhere around there. So I just can't do it with the rookies at that point. I'm still taking the guys that I think are going to produce in year 1, just because I never get the rookies in the startup because of that. So I'm like Corey Davis is going off at like 206 or something like that now, I believe.
22.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. 16.
Yeah. 16. Are you kidding me? That's like, what is it? That's 204. Like I cannot do it. So, who else is going around that 16 mark? Like Watkins, I'm sure is somewhere in there,
Yeah. You got Freeman, you have Watkins, you have Cooks.
I'm never going to get those guys in a startup draft. Now I would love to trade for them. I'd love to have them in a trade up in a rookie draft to get them, but in a league where I can just take anybody, there's no way.
Sal, any of those guys in that range jump out at you?
That I'm surprised that they're in that range. Well, I got McCoy, Mixon, Cook, Henry. Who were the other 3 that you said were in that range?
We got Ajayi, Murray, Miller.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Ajayi, it's 25 to 50, so it's a pretty decent wide range. When Steve said Ajayi before, I think he said was in his tier 2 for this year. Was that correct, Steve?
Ajayi's in the back end of my tier 2.
Yeah, that actually surprised me from Steve because you're basically saying that for this season coming up, you find he's equal to Melvin Gordon and LaShawn McCoy. So I have him, I think, as a top 9 RB this year, but I just found that surprising. So I think Ajayi only having a 1 year and kind of being big game dependent on some of those games, maybe him, but he's a player I like, but I don't know about long term.
Yeah, for me, the biggest surprise there is that Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray are right near each other. 43 for Henry, 45 for Murray. I guess in my mind, at some point, there should be some separation between the two. You should have some kind of separation, particularly when you're talking dynasty, because you're either going for the young guy or the old guy. And for me, I mean, look, I actually don't really like either of them because I don't like Henry at that high of a value because I'm not a big Henry guy, but I do think that he's going to start to take over. So I don't love Murray at that value either. So for me, those were the 2 that stood out. But all right, I digress. Let's continue on through the game. You got 4 points for that one, Matt. So Steve, you have 8 answers on the board here, and Sally, you have the ability to steal. So pay attention. We're
gonna be brutal.
We're gonna do. You have 8 answers. I only gave Matt 7, so you got an advantage here. All right, wide receivers with an overall ADP between 50 and 60. So there's only 10 players here. You have to name 5 of the 10.
Oh, cool. So I've got the same amount of players I have to name, but my pick, the range of my picks is 15 fewer than what Matt was given. So,
right,
yeah,
he's made it easier.
It's much easier. This is great.
You have 8 to choose from. He had 7 to choose from. I think it's pretty easy. Just let's continue on the game here.
I see how this game.
You are kind of the worst, Steve.
See, right?
The games are geared to make me seem like the worst. This is what is happening here. All right.
So 8 wide receivers between 50 and 60. Go.
8 wide receivers between 50 and 60. And these are all dynasty, right?
Yes, dynasty ADP and the overall ADP between 50 and 60. Stop stalling. Let's get some answers.
Emmanuel Sanders.
That is incorrect.
That's great. It's a good start.
Yep. Those noises are very nice in the podcast. Everyone loves that.
I got to think. You don't want me to think? Jesus.
That's what people do on the Feud.
I think you got to make out with Steve Harvey if you take this long. I think
that's right. That's
right. Keenan Allen.
That is also incorrect. You're 0 for 2, Steve.
This is good. Well, I can only miss like a couple more. So this is.
You know that Sal only has to get 1. So if you get none, he's got 8 to choose from for only 1.
Give me a Willie Snead.
Willie Snead is in there at 55. Nice job.
All right, Sneedy.
What about a guy like Brandon Marshall?
Brandon Marshall is incorrect. I'm sorry, Steve. You have lost with 1 correct so far. So Sal, you only need to answer 1. But unfortunately, since he only got 1, you only get 2 points.
Oh, damn it, Steve.
What do you got, Sal? Let's hear it.
Well, so there's somebody who popped into my head right away, and I want to use him because I think it'll hurt you if he happens to be in there. So I'm going to say Sterling Shepard.
That is incorrect, but it was a great guess.
No way.
No, Sterling Shepard is not on there. Let's see.
Get a shot at stealing here since there's so many left?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot left. We're going to give Matt a chance here. Let's see if you can do it.
I'm going to go ahead and say Tyreek Hill. He's got to be in there.
Tyreek Hill is in there for 50. That number 53.
I was going to say.
I'm only going to give you the 1 point, though, Matt.
That's fair. That's fair.
So the guy I was going to really go with, but I was hoping that Shepard would stick into Steve's craw, was going to be Martavis Bryant.
Martavis Bryant is in there at 51.
God damn it.
Should have gone with your first instinct.
Especially after our conversation this morning, you absolutely should have gone with him.
I was going to do that. I had 2 guys up, but I thought Shepard would have hurt more. Damn you, Shepard.
All right, so real quickly, in this category, Mike Williams at 50, Martavis Bryant at 51, Devontae Parker at 52, Tyreek Hill at 53, Michael Crabtree at 54, Willie Snead at 55, Golden Tate at 56, and Josh Doctson at 59. So all of those guys fall within the 50 to 60 range. And what does that tell you, Steve?
That tells me that you can wait a little bit on your wide receivers. Obviously, there is a huge chunk of them available later on in the draft. So if you are drafting in a dynasty mindset, you should probably spend your earlier picks on other positions because there is a plethora of serviceable options waiting for you between picks 50 and 60, as we have just pointed out. Yeah, and I like a lot of those wide receivers that you just named. So I'm a big Devontae Parker fan this year. Tyreek Hill, I think, is going to be very serviceable. And Willie Snead, obviously we all know how much Sal loves a little bit of Snead. So, yeah, I like him.
I like to see Pete in there. But, Matt, what jumps out at you with this group of 8 wide receivers in that 10 player range?
The fact that Martavis Bryant is all the way up there in the early 5th round now. I mean, I get it. I love him as a player. My buddy Chad Scott, he's I think he would probably take him in the 1st round if we let him. But the risk is still there for me. So I don't know. It's still a touch early. I think I would rather have guys that are a little bit more reliable in that range, just depending on my roster makeup. Guys like Michael Crabtree, who probably has similar, at least touchdown upside as Martavis Bryant does. I love Willie Snead too, and you can get him a little bit later, it looks like, than Bryant. So Tate, he's coming off of 390 reception seasons, and still he still gets no respect. So those guys are just a little bit more reliable than Bryant. If I'm going to go for the gusto though, like let's say that I've started off my draft, which I often do, started off with 3 or 4 state wide receivers. I'm going to have Martavis Bryant as a wide receiver 5, and he ends up being like a high wide receiver 2 for fantasy purposes. Then I could see doing that. But if I've taken a couple running backs early or something like that, then I'm probably going to want one of those more reliable guys at that point in my draft.
Completely agree there.
I like what you said about Willie Snead. Consistent producer and gets no respect. I can relate.
He actually said that about Golden Tate, but that's okay. Nice listening.
No, that is not true.
I talked about both of those guys on last night's show, actually, how they're both like pretty undervalued in terms of where they're going right now. Considering where they finished the last couple of years and where they're being drafted at, they just seem like values. Like Willie Snead, I think, is being drafted at his floor. I don't think in the last 2 years he's finished. My numbers are probably wrong, but somewhere like wide receiver 34 was his lowest finish, and he's going off the board at like wide receiver 32. So you're basically drafting that as floor, and you've got all the targets from Brandon Cooks not being there. So I like that quite a bit.
All right, so we got to move on because we are short on time. And, of course, Sal loves the tight end, so we're going to do a tight end question for you, Sal. You have 6 answers on the board. And you have an overall ADP of 75 to 100. Matt, you have a chance to steal here, so make sure you pay attention. So go ahead, Sal. 75 to 100 overall. Which 5 tight ends are you going to pick here?
Yeah, 75 to 100.
Hey, sweet 25-player gap that you were afforded there, Sal. That's super convenient.
All right, so I have to come up with 5 of these suckers.
Yep.
I'm going to say O.J. Howard.
Incorrect.
Oh, Christ. That up here. That's going to eliminate all the rookie tight ends for me at that point. Eric Ebron.
Incorrect. Wow, you guys are getting killed.
I bet Sterling Shepard's somewhere in there.
Hey, while I'm stalling for time, where was Sterling Shepard?
You go ahead. I will see if I can find that, but I would bet that
while Sal's looking up the ADPs right now, where was Sterling Shepard?
Sterling Shepard was at an 85, so Matt is correct. He does fall within this category.
That's bonus point, right?
Yeah, there you go. Bonus point.
Matt, I'm not going to score any points. You already have enough to beat me. All right, I'll say Kyle Rudolph.
That is incorrect as well. So you got none. Sal.
Oh my God! Oh my goodness, Sal.
All right, Matt, you have the ability to steal here. You need to name one, just one.
Is it really this hard? Could it be?
But you only get 1 point.
You said 75 to 100.
Correct.
That is like the math 72. So like the 7th round on. So I'm going to say Greg Olsen.
Greg Olsen is there at 77, so you win with 1 point. You want to keep going? I'll give you as many points as you can get.
He's being undervalued, that Greg Olsen.
He is, man. I think he is. He's going like 2 spots after. I think O.J. Howard is like the tight end 5 in this month's ADP or something like that. That's so he's going less. I think he's going behind him. Anyway, I'm gonna guess how many. I got 4 more.
Where is Howard going?
O.J. Howard is at 72, so you were pretty close there, Sal. I'll give you that.
That's brutal.
Yeah, I knew it had to be close. All right, so I got 4 more in there. I'll say Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham is correct.
I will say, Njoku. Is he in there?
Njoku is there. Yep.
Man, around Greg Olsen, it's such a big gap right there. Ertz, does he make the cut? Is he low? He's probably lower. He's probably lower.
Just barely makes the cut at 99.
Oh, Ertz was gonna be my steal.
I think that's all
4 so far.
There's 1 left.
There's 2. There's total of 2.
Oh, okay. Jeez. Evan Ingram, I'll guess.
That's correct.
Really? Wow.
1 more.
Oh,
I got it. I know.
Right at the front. I'll give you a hint. The last guy's at the front end here.
At the front end. So like 75-ish, somewhere in there. I thought Hunter Henry was earlier than that, but maybe that's him. Is it Hunter Henry?
That's him. Correct.
I knew that he was like right after Howard. So you said Howard was 72, so I figured that had to be close.
So let me say that we did probably 3 or 4 startups this year. Kevin's done a few more. Maybe I've even done 5. But all my startups seem to have been like a month and a half to 2 months ago. I got to be flat out honest with you. I have not looked at 1 ounce of Dynasty ADP this year at all. So I don't think it's that hard. It's just that I'm so bad at it, Matt.
All right, so we're gonna keep moving because Matt's killing you guys, and this is killing the segment. But Matt,
no, this is where I make my move.
Yeah, here we go. So Matt,
Kickers, right? Kickers. Let's go.
No, we're gonna do quarterbacks, which is whatever. They're all over the board a little bit here, but you have 6 answers on the board. You have an overall ADP of 95 to 127. Steve, you can steal, so pay attention. 95 to 127 for round 2 here, Matt.
And how many do I got?
You can answer up to 5. You got 6 total.
There's 6 total there, and I can get up to 5. Okay, 95 to 127. Such a random. I guess it's because of your grouping thing. I got it now. Okay, so Brady's got to be in there.
Brady is in there. That's one.
Oh man,
he's at 96.
Brady, Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan is at 95.
Whew, just barely. If Brady's in there, then Breeze has to be there.
At 100. Yep.
Here's
where it gets interesting.
Yeah. This is really good radio, I know.
Come on, Kev, call him out on making sounds and stuff.
Cousins? Kirk Cousins?
Kirk Cousins at 124. So that's 4. You get one more, you get the round.
Man, it's so painful. God. I'm going to tell you guys listening at home, this is way harder than you think it is when you're actually sitting here under the clock.
Less silences, so don't worry about it.
Did I say Cam Newton? Has he dropped that far?
He is not. That's one wrong.
All right. Well, if Cam's not there, then how about a couple notches below? How about Winston?
Winston's not in here either. Cam is at, looking it up real quick here, Cam's at 75.
Okay.
I got to imagine Winston is somewhere a little bit ahead of him if I had to guess.
All right. Well, I'll go down another tier then. How about Prescott?
Prescott is in it. That is correct. Yes. Wow. So 5 points around there.
That is impressive.
You want to go for the 6th one?
Geez, I don't know. If you give me a hint, maybe. What's he close to? What's he close to at the end or the middle?
Tonight, and he is at the end.
He's at the end. We talked about him tonight. It's got to be Stafford then, right?
That is correct. Yes, Matt Stafford is the last one at 127. The reason I had that random selection is because, for me, I think that's a good tier, and then you start seeing a significant drop off after Matt Stafford. I think the next QB isn't till 142, and that's Carson Wentz. And in my mind, I know Sal's bigger on Carson Wentz than I am this year, but that's a significant tier break right there.
Oh yeah, I actually have Wentz as I don't know where it is now, but I definitely have him as the tier break in one of my tiers there for quarterbacks for sure. Let's see. So yeah, he's at the top of the Bortles, Tannehill, Manning, Palmer, Flacco kind of tier.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, and if you look at my rankings for this year, that's right where he is. He's at the top of where I go to Manning, Bortles, that red-haired guy that plays in Cincinnati.
Dalton.
Yeah, that's the guy. And I think I have Tyrod Taylor in there. You guys weren't happy about that, but anyway.
All right, Steve.
Yes.
This is going to get harder. Oh no, go ahead. What was your question?
I was just going to ask where Tyrod Taylor was in your ADP, in the ADP that you're looking at.
Give me a minute here, and I will tell you.
I know he gets no love, but he's a consistent performer. So I was just curious, and he's a younger guy. So
I don't know about consistent. I mean, how many years has he played?
I love him too, Steve.
I'm a big Tyrod Taylor fan as well. Tyrod Taylor, 153 is his average. Hang on, let me see where that puts him on. So yeah, he is 150 even in the ADP. So
all right.
Steve, I didn't hear you complaining about my 32 player gap there.
No. You're the guest, and you've definitely been on my side for the majority of the podcast. So no, it's
no. He was on your side for a minute.
And then he called you the worst.
He has called you worst twice.
That is true.
All right, so
let's try for 3.
Let me guess, Kev. We've got a 10-player gap where I have to pick all 10 of them, and they are 7 different positions.
No, we have 8 answers on the board. It is a 25-player gap between 100 and
7 O-linemen.
Between 100 and 125, and you're doing running backs.
Oh, average ADP of 100 and 125.
That's correct. And Sal, you can steal, so pay attention. Although neither of you can beat Matt at this point.
You said 100 to 125. Okay, go ahead.
God damn it. Let's see here. Where is a guy like Latavius Murray going? Latavius Murray?
He's not there. That is an incorrect answer. You go ahead and see if you can come up with your next one. I will see if I can find Latavius Murray here.
Let's go with a Mike Gillislee.
That is also incorrect.
Jesus Christ. What about a guy like Samaje Perine?
Nope, that's incorrect. Also, that is 3 straight wrongs, and you are awful at this game.
Yeah.
Sal, you need 1, but you actually need to get all 5 in order to compete. So I'm going to give you a chance here. Steve, you're eliminated because,
Hey, that's fair.
But Sal, if you can get all 5 here and all 5 of your next one, you guys would tie. So let's see if we can do this.
All right, Deonta Foreman.
That is correct.
You know what?
Foreman comes in at 111.
I'm not going to say this guy, even though he's my boy.
Say it, I dare you.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'll say Bilal Powell.
Bilal Powell is correct at 121.
I'm going to say the name I was going to say and see if he still holds any value. Jeremy Hill.
Jeremy Hill is not in there. That's correct. So you only got 2 there, but
But I got on the board. My mom's going to be so proud.
You did get on the board. We'll give you the 2 points, even though it's meaningless. In this range, Theo Riddick at 102, Paul Perkins at 103, Doug Martin at 106, Deonta Foreman at 111, Joe Williams at 119, Bilal Powell at 121, Duke Johnson at 123, and Jamal Williams at 125. Matt, any thoughts on this category and this group?
Yeah, I still love the price on Riddick. That's as long as that wrist is okay after that surgery, then I think he's easily going to catch, and at least I think his floor is probably like 40 catches, and I think he could easily catch as many as like 60 to 70. So I love that price. And then I'm going to go ahead and shout out for my boy Jamal Williams at 125 because I love that. I love Jamal Williams. I'm going to take him there. You call him a plotter, call him a thumper, call him whatever you want. I don't care. I love the player. I think he's going to be on the field all the time. Maybe not in passing downs, I guess, but he's just so good in pass protection and they lost both J.C. Treader and TJ Lang from their offensive line. Didn't really do a whole lot to replace him. They're going to have to start Don Barclay. I can't remember where they're going to start him along the line. They used to start him at right tackle, and every time he was in there, Rodgers got killed. Those couple of seasons where he missed like towards the end of the season, the one where he like landed and like I think he busted or broke a rib or something like that. It was Barclay's fault. So I think they need that guy back there, and I hope Ty Montgomery can learn the pass protection skill set. But I think Jamal Williams comes in with it.
I'm glad you brought him up because I was going to actually ask you when you were done why Joe Williams over Jamal Williams, but yep. I know everybody's banging it. Hey, we're banging the table. If I hear that one more goddamn time, I'm going to bang somebody's head off the table. I don't love Carlos Hyde. Kevin has a lot of investment in Carlos Hyde this year, but I still think it's going to be his job this year. And I think the talent level is there. And I just am so amazed that so many people are pounding the table for Joe Williams over a guy like Jamal.
Doesn't this feel like the Tevin Coleman, Devonta Freeman situation from a few years ago? It's the same coach, right? And he's brought in his guy with the veteran starter there, but guess what? This veteran starter still beat him out in the long run. I know a lot of that was due to injury with Coleman and whatnot, but it just feels kind of similar to me that they could both be productive maybe next season, but I think it's still Hyde's show this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? Maybe Williams is a good stash in Dynasty for a year or 2 out because maybe they do kind of morph into that those roles, or maybe Hyde gets shipped off at some point. But I agree with both of you. I think Hyde is definitely the guy this year, and in an offense like that, I think that he can succeed. So I'm pretty high on Hyde this year, and hopefully that pays out because I have a lot of shares. So all right, look, we are getting very, very low on time here, and I had one left. I'm gonna give Sal a chance here, even though he is down by 8. There are 9 answers on this board. It's wide receivers, overall ADP of 125 through 150. If he can get 9 of them, he can win. So we'll give him a chance to get them all. If you get 3 wrong, you're out, and Matt is the crown champion here. So go ahead, Sal. 125 through 150 wide receivers.
I have to get 8.
You gotta get 9 to win.
9 of them.
Oh my God! All right, Malcolm Mitchell.
That's 1 wrong.
Oh jeez.
Come on, these are your guys. I'm looking at this list, and I think that you'll like almost all of them. So,
Carlos Henderson.
He is on there. That is 1.
Oh yeah. So you're saying guys that I like? Marquise Lee.
But he is on there. There's 2.
That is so terrible.
He is at 135.
And what was my range? 125 to 150.
Correct.
Oh my God.
Henderson was 148, by the way.
Nice, getting in there. Who's the other guy? Well, I'm going to say Robert Woods.
No, he is wrong. That's 2 wrong.
All right.
One more wrong, and Matt is the champion.
All right, so here's a guy I was high on last year in there. Cameron Meredith.
He is not in there. He's way higher than that at this point. I'll find Meredith, but he is not in there at all. All right, so look, it's
started out so promising.
You started off good. You only got 2, and which really means you get no points. Matt is the winner. Deshaun Jackson's not in there. It's Macklin, Rashard Matthews, Marquise Lee, Quincy Enunwa, Mike Wallace, Kenny Britt, Chris Conley, and Kenny Galladay and Carlos Henderson are the guys in that range.
Enunwa was the one I should have gotten.
Enunwa, I figured you for sure you would have had. So, and I think if correct me if I'm wrong, but with Macklin being shipped out, aren't you a big Conley guy?
Me?
Yeah. No. Am I wrong?
No, I'm not. First of all, I don't like anybody who dresses in the Chiefs uniform, but I think I'm buying into Tyreek Hill right now, and I traded for him in pigs before, obviously a while before the whole Macklin thing. But no, I'm thinking that offense is going to go through Kelsey, the running backs, and Hill. I don't know that I'm that high on Conley.
I like Conley quite a bit, but I think it's going to take Mahomes getting in there to really take advantage of him.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think we all know at this point what Alex Smith is and what his limitations are as far as making a productive wide receiver. So I agree with you. I'm still curious if Mahomes is going to turn into anything. I don't know necessarily that he'll be able to fix the issues that he had in college. I think we a lot of times hear about skill sets and they can just fix their consistency or some mechanics or some decision making or you get rid of a little bit of the gunslinger. Look, how often does it actually happen that these guys do that? So I'm worried about him long term. I think people are a lot higher on him than they should be. But if it does pan out, I think you're right. Conley is a guy that you can certainly look to. All right, that was long and boring because Matt was so dominant. So congratulations to you, Matt, for winning the game.
Not boring. Matt's just very good at that.
I'll say this: if we did have a fast money round, Kevin, I guess I would just have to pick you as my teammate by default because you're not going to get us that 20 grand.
That's true. That is very, very true. So that's it for the show tonight. We are going to get out of here because I'm sure Matt has thought to himself, I've been here for way too long. We always finish up this show with some finishing thoughts. So Matt, why don't you start off by, first of all, reminding everyone where they can find you and what you do. And then any kind of, finishing thoughts that you want to throw out there as well would be great.
Yeah, again, you can find me on Twitter at @mpricer. All of my work's at dynastyleaguefootball.com. Please check out all the podcasts we got. We just released a new one with, of course, Ryan McDowell because he does 75 podcasts a day, and Curtis Patrick with the Player Raider podcast, which sounds like it's going to be really cool. They're talking about Curtis's new machine rankings thing that he's developing. I don't know exactly how it works. He's way smarter than I am. But so check that stuff out. And then also a plug if you feel like you're in the doldrums of the fantasy season and want to listen to something other than football stuff, you can also check out, I have a podcast where I basically took Matt Harmon's idea from Backyard Banner and transferred it to the zookeeping career. So if you want to learn about animals or zookeepers, that kind of stuff, you can check out Zookeeper Stories on iTunes and Stitcher. Final thoughts, just be good to each other, guys. Look, we have a lot of fun on this show, making fun of Steve and Sal and all that. But once we get on Twitter and be public, I feel like there's been a lot of can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of swinging on Twitter lately. I'll just say that. We're listen, how many times do we got to say the best of us are 60% right at this game? So all of us are going to be wrong on a lot of things. So if somebody has a different take than you, take that and try to learn from it. Don't just go out and bash them publicly for it or try to bring people down with that. So when you're out there and if you are someone who's an aspiring writer, I guarantee you burning bridges like that in the industry is not gonna help you out. So just be nice, promote good work, do good work yourself, and just be good to each other. This is a fun game, and if this is, I like to quote Sigmund Bloom here from Football Guy. It says, if the biggest thing you got to worry about in your day is a fantasy football decision, then your life's pretty good. So just kind of keep that in perspective as you move forward.
That might actually be the best finishing thought that we've ever had on this show. So I'm going to go ahead and horribly follow that up with my plug for everywhere you can find Falafel. You can check us out on Twitter at falafelhouse.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. You can check out falafelhouse.com where we are starting to pump out articles almost daily now as we gear up to this fantasy season. Go ahead and check us all out there. And we also want to give a shout out to the Dynasty Happy Hour podcast network, which we are happily a part of. Go ahead and check out the Dynasty Happy Hour website to find all kinds of different podcasts that will help you win your fantasy season. And I'm going to keep it short and sweet and hand it over to Sal, since I typically seem to steal all of his material.
Yeah, I generally don't have any material, and I just want to thank you, Matt, for coming on. And I want to say that that was very educational. I'm really getting into Dynasty now. I've been a redraft player for most of my time in fantasy, and I basically jumped into Dynasty last year. And that's really awesome. Follow Matt, follow everything they're doing over at DLF. There's a lot of great guys doing a lot of great work. And the only thing I'll bring up, and sometimes I end up screwing over Kevin, is I'm going to bring up the Celebrity Eliminator that John Bosch is running. And what he's doing here is he's put together a list of celebrities, and Falafel is on that list. And what you could do is you could go to fantasycares.net, click on that challenge, and you could go into a best ball tournament against us. And each week, the lowest scoring team is going to be eliminated. Not lose, eliminated. You have the lowest score that week, you're gone. It's $10. $100 goes to Fantasy Cares. $50 goes to the champion. $10 goes to the runner-up. John Bosch does great things, and I just want to let everybody know that you should jump right in there.
And that'll be a nice short season for you on that one, Sal. Yeah, John
By the way,
Bosch
we're sharing a team, by the way, you, me, and Steve, moron.
Ah, crap. Can I share a team with Matt instead?
We are actually, DLF is going to get a team on there too. I don't think that is there on there yet, but they will have one on there. So we'll be competing as well.
Excellent. Definitely check out John Bosch and all his stuff. Fantasy Insanity podcast is definitely a good one. He does some creative leagues, goes over that stuff. It's not a strategy podcast or talk about player values. It's a league podcast where he talks about different styles of league. Definitely very interesting. So check that out.
Hey, Matt, you were on there not that long ago, correct?
Yeah, I was talking about Red List, which is a league. It's not as cool as Fantasy Cares, but we donate 25% of our league entry fees to an animal charity. Basically, each owner represents a certain species on the endangered species list, and then whoever wins gets to throw a bunch of money at whichever charity they're representing. So it's a lot of fun. But I do want to thank you guys so much for having me on. This is a great show, and you guys are tons of fun. And Kevin, I'm so excited to see you joining a lot of Dynasty leagues this year. I think you've joined like 27 of them so far. So
you should be excited. You should beat him in all of them.
That's not true, Steve. That's not accurate at all, and I appreciate that, Matt. I'm glad to be in all those leagues. I did join quite a bit this year, but it's been phenomenal because the people in most of those leagues are awesome, and I expect to win a few, so that'll be nice as well. Matt did kind of finally steal my thunder on my finishing thought a little bit. Obviously, I want to thank Matt for being here, but I also want to plug the fantasycares.net. Definitely go over to there. Besides the John Bosch, best ball tournament. Eliminator tournament. You can also sign up for other best ball leagues that the proceeds go directly to Fantasy Cares, which provides money to Toys for Tots for donating for toys for children around the holiday season. So check that out, fantasycares.net. Go over there and enter some leagues, as many as you possibly can, because it's for a great cause. Obviously run by Scott Fish, who is a good friend of the show, and he does some great things. So definitely check that out. Matt, thanks again for coming on. People will check you out at DLF. And until then, Steve, hit the button.